Welcome. I'm Alice Alicia Jones, and this is another one of my Living Consciously videos. Today, I'm going to have a little bit of a departure from what I normally do, simply because I've been watching the impeachment proceedings this week, and I felt that it was truly critical that I cover a few of the details from what I have witnessed. This is the first time in my life that I took the time to watch every single minute of the proceedings, as well as the commentary that came afterwards by MSNBC commentators. I never really had the time before, and so I just kind of backed off from watching anything except for maybe an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours at the most. But I really have dedicated myself to this process. And by way of disclaimer, I do want to tell you I am an immigrant. I came to this country as a child from Poland, from a communist country. And my mother, literally, when we got off the plane, literally stooped down and kissed the earth. She was so grateful to be here, to be part of the land of the free, because freedom is not something she knew when she was in Poland. She wasn't free, ever. So effectively, I really grew up with an inordinate sense of patriotism and an inordinate sense of what it means to live in a democracy and to have the right to say whatever it is that I want to say without the fear of having a neighbor listen in outside the window and turn me in to the state for the price of a bottle of vodka, because this is what my grandmother experienced, or the fear of what they lived through when they were under Nazi occupation. So I my words are obviously are going to be colored by my background. And frankly, I grew up with, like I said, tremendous pride in this country, tremendous pride at being an American. And the most important thing that I have gotten out of watching this entire proceedings is the fact that there is a lie that has been perpetrated, and 74 million people have bought into that lie. At least 74 million voters have bought into that lie. And that lie was the election was stolen from us. That is not true. And the reason I titled this talk, Educate Yourself, because what my guide said is remind them the words of Thomas Jefferson: an uneducated people will never be free. You can have belief systems, and generally our belief systems come from our parents. And we have belief systems that are perpetrated upon us through society, through our governments, through our um, social groups, through our religions. All those belief systems funnel down through us to make us who we are. And but and our political parties that have become so divided all I can think back is when I was growing up, there were people that would come to my parents' home and they would argue politics vehemently, absolutely vehemently. They were passionate about whatever stand they took. And I don't remember listening in. I just didn't. I wasn't interested at that time. But this election made me feel I absolutely had to become interested in what was happening out there because there was the big lie that this election was stolen from us, that was perpetrated over and over and over, and stop the steal, stop the steal, stop the steal. And, and what did it culminate in? Our capital being ransacked by a violent mob. 7 people to this date have died. We are property managers. One of our tenants was a female Capitol policeman. She came out of the melee with a broken wrist. I did break my wrist a number of years ago. I know how hard the impact was when I fell on my wrist and how painful it was when I broke it. I cannot imagine that. And her problem wasn't even counted on the things, but I cannot imagine as I watch the videos of every single that 13-minute video and the other videos that have come in, including security videos without sound, because showing the what was happening in the Capitol at the time. I cannot imagine the hurt, the pain that I can closely come to it, but what the police force had to have experienced when they were doing their job to secure everybody in the Capitol. If All I know is that the house managers laid out an absolutely exceptional job of showing point by point, day by day, minute by minute, how this came to be and how what happened at the Capitol did not happen just because that mob showed up that day. There were forerunners. It was almost like dry runs. The mob that took over the capital of Lansing, Michigan. I happen to have lived in Michigan prior to. That's where I grew up when we came in from Poland. We came to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I went to school in Ann Arbor, Michigan, to the University of Michigan. So that state obviously holds a special place in my heart. And it breaks my heart to see a mob take charge of, an armed mob to take charge of the Capitol in Lansing. One of the things that was repeated: this election was stolen from us. You absolutely have to understand how the election votes are counted. That was never an issue before. And I would always watch election results up until they declared the winner, usually. Um, and this time it took, what, 3.5 days to declare a winner because they were so cautious about declaring a state for the Democratic candidate unless they were 100% certain that they were going to that there wasn't going to be any surprises in the remaining votes. I can remember, and again, I'm doing this from memory, but I can remember that the states that were in question were Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, and I guess Nevada. And so effectively, those states, the ones that were controlled by Republican legislators, did not allow their people, the electoral representatives, to count the votes of the absentee ballots, the provisional ballots, until after the tally of the people who voted in person. You all know that this is a pandemic. You all know that the Republicans had very absolutely scant, just not any respect for the restrictions that the CDC put on us. Stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask. They were going to vote. The Republicans were going to vote the day of the election. Most of the Democrats chose to vote by absentee ballot. My husband and I, for the first time in our life, chose to vote by absentee ballot. And we took our ballot to a place that we knew was our government center, where the vote would it wasn't even a pickup box. It was taken directly to the government center and dropped off there. The important thing of understanding about counting the ballots that night was the fact that those states that were controlled by Republican legislatures did not allow those states to count the absentee ballots until after all of the ballots that had been done in person were counted. So yes, 12 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock at night, or at least by 12, I guess the Republicans were ahead. And because basically the Democratic ballots were not counted, because most of the people that were voting Democratic were voting by absentee ballot. You absolutely have to understand that. There was no steal. There was no steal. There was no steal. And every time that they came and said something like, dead people voted. Yeah, because one woman used her husband's name as Mrs. James Dean instead of Sally Dean, whatever she was. So yes, was there confusion? Maybe once in a while, but was there confusion to eliminate 7 million ballots or to eliminate 70 electoral college ballots? No, not even close. Not even close. And those people who were primed constantly, continuously, that this is a stolen election, and the fact that our legislators allowed that. They basically, their attitude was, oh, what's the harm? He'll be gone soon. Let him have his way. But if you watch the progression of every single thing that happened, you will see that the call to have people come to the Capitol on the 6th of January was the last ditch effort that the president at that point could take, that he could summon his troops and by repeating to them, you have to fight. You have to take control, or you're going to lose control of our country. You have to fight and fight like hell for it. Those type of words to a group of people that have already been primed and primed and primed again to the fact that this election was stolen from them. That started way before the election even came, because the first words out there, as soon as he recognized that he was running behind in the polls, the first words he said was, the only way I will lose is if it's going to be stolen from me. This is going to be the most rigged election in the history of the United States. Repeating that over and over and over and over prior to the election, and then trying to disenfranchise votes. Our vote is the heart of our democracy. We can live without hands. We can live without hearts. We can even live with part of our face gone. We can live without legs. We cannot live without a heart. Our free elections are the heart of our democracy. That is why it is absolutely critical that you completely educate yourself on the electoral process, that you understand what it is, how votes are counted. It never was an issue before. But if Trump is acquitted and allowed to run again, one of our House managers said, I'm not afraid of the possibility of him running again. I'm afraid of the possibility of him running and losing again, because there will be a repeat of this. A tiger does not lose its stripes. It continues in the same vein. There absolutely was no steal. If you're convinced of that, to this day, all I ask, please go into the internet. You can find everything on YouTube. If you didn't have the opportunity to see what was in the House manager's presentations, go one by one. Start with the 13-minute video. Start with that. Because even that, I don't think, gives you the horror, the complete horror of what was done that day. There were a couple of comments that just broke my heart. And one of them was from one of the janitorial staffs. And he said, I could not believe that after having been through what I was through, I now had to go and clean up feces that had been smeared on the wall of the Capitol and clean up blood that had been shed. Unreal. Uh, Unreal. And the unfortunate thing is that unless we each take a stand and each are determined to tell the truth, Mitt Romney said it. He said this would not have happened if he had just told the truth. And if every single legislator out there demanded, that is a lie. This election was not stolen. 60 court cases in front of 90 judges could not prove any merit. 60 court cases, frivolous, unfrivolous, serious court cases were thrown out of court. Not a single one of them passed. So, do we take this lightly as a people? We, the people, comprise this democracy. We, the people, have to stand up for it. We have to let our voices be heard. And at the absolute base is tell the truth. I thank you. I did not expect to have to do this, but I personally wanted to go and watch the rebuttal, which starts at 12 noon today. So I stopped and decided that I was going to do this early because I didn't want to have the rebuttal in my head as I after I did this. And again, to bring yourself into a positive place, use the meditations in my book, Own Your Power, Day by Day. It's one of the best meditation books in the country. I thank you for being here. I will see you at 1 o'clock next week, Friday. Thank you. Welcome. I'm Alice Alicia